You are tuned into Mostly Humans. The opinions and views shared by the hosts of this podcast are uniquely their own and do not reflect the view or opinions of the companies they work for. P.S. Don't sue or fire us. Thanks so much. Now let's get into the episode.
We watch movies from the 50s and people wear top hats and everyone's chain smoking indoors and drinking whiskey for lunch. And we look back.
That was a balance. It was a well-balanced meal.
Yeah. Or maybe I just watched too much Mad Men. That's my only orientation.
All right. Welcome back to Mostly Humans. Joined by my co-host, Matt Bigelow. I am your other host, Justin Wright. We're happy to be here. We got an exciting topic today, but before we get to that, how has the week been for you, Matt?
The week has been good. I feel like I'm learning a lot about how to do things agentically for the enterprise. I know that we talk about that kind of stuff a lot, but that is my day job. And I feel like I'm having some really good breakthroughs. Most of us have to get really good at, if we're in software, our company's product, which you and I definitely have to do. We have to get good at our company's product. But a big part of my role is also understanding how our agentic workflows interact with dozens of other software tools. So I kind of have to get to know those tools well. And I think I'm actually having some breakthroughs just in getting a really strong understanding of old school software, the stuff that's been around forever. Because I have to learn how my clients use that and then figure out how our AI workers can go in there and get stuff done. So I'm getting really familiar with the big players of the world, like the ServiceNows and the Workdays and the Jiras and all those types of products. How's the week been for you?
Yeah, it's been good. I know the struggle of having to learn legacy software. I feel like that's my everyday, right? It's not even the stuff that I need to know. It's the learning Salesforce configurations and checkboxes and buttons that only 3 people know what they do at the organization you're talking to. And it's 2 of them are on vacation and one of them left 10 years ago. And now you don't know how to change this button. So there's a lot of that, which I think we talked a little bit about the real world struggles of actually employing this stuff at businesses. One of our recent episodes where it's just it's not, drag and drop yet. That would be great. And, in our emergency episode, we talked about these workflow builders that make that process easier, but it's still a struggle.
A bit of advice I could share with the listeners. If we remove the idea that I'm working for an agentic company, remove that for a second. I could not do the other part of my job, which is just learning all of these different software platforms and how my clients want to use them without AI. Pardon me. Prior to AI being a thing and prior to image recognition AI being a thing, I would have gone to Google and typed in how do I access this XYZ property? And the thing with enterprise software, as all of us know, enterprise software means extreme customization. So if you're looking for the XYZ button, you probably can't find that button. So if you search for an answer to that, this isn't consumer software, it's going to be really hard to find an answer. So you'd go to message boards and Command F and get so frustrated. I'd say in my role, at least 10 times a day, I'm taking a screenshot of a platform that I'm logged into and asking AI, how do I get to the wherever page? Or how do I make this thing follow this workflow? And then I'll post it again, another screenshot and be okay, now from here, I've got this far. I'm confused again. Tell me where to go. And it'll just go, oh, gotcha, Matt. Do you see that little gear icon? Nested below that, there's a human eye. Click the human eye. That will give you the admin settings. And in there, you can find that drop down that you're looking for. And so that's huge for me. But I think most of our listeners have to use tools every day at work that they kind of know, but they could probably get better outcomes if they did more. Screenshotting the app you're in, the page you're on, it'll blow your mind what the LLMs know about all these software platforms and how to get the thing done you're looking to get done. It's been pretty much a game changer.
Yeah, so true story. This morning, I'm at the gym early morning getting my workout in. And one of the coaches who was covering the class or whatever, and I haven't been coaching for a while, but they still ask me questions. And he handed me the remote and he's oh, the 10-second countdown for the clock stopped working. So now it just starts. He goes do you know how to fix this? I don't remember how to fix this. And I literally took a photo on my phone of the remote and I knew what type of clock it was. And I went on ChatGPT and I uploaded the screenshot and I said, hey, I accidentally turned off the 10-second countdown on the gym clock. And sent the picture of the remote and it was oh, for that model of remote, there's actually this button here, the button that if you press it and hit select, then and it's literally, I use it constantly for things like that every day in terms of, hey, how do I actually do this thing on this screen? Or I encounter error messages all the time, probably because I'm not actually a talented software engineer yet. And so I write a program or I go to install an app and something breaks and I get this error message. And it's like, I know the, general flavor of what different types of error messages mean, but every software platform has obviously their own specific messages. That means like, hey, you hit the do not press ever button, error like 527, and screenshot the error message, upload it, say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. And the number of times that it has actually helped me figure out the problem quickly without also having to bother somebody else on the team is super, super important. Just keeping workflows going and, being able to actually get this stuff implemented and working.
Yeah. I know that we have a topic we want to get to today, but let's keep rattling off some of these great use cases so people know. Like, I do this in my personal life too, constantly, just like you did at the gym. So I'm assuming that was a CrossFit gym, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the 10-second countdown is obviously like really big because that means you're going to move to the next thing. So you need to know like 10 seconds, it's like power through, get that one last rep. So like, yeah, that probably saved the class vibe, right?
And well, listen, one of the catchphrases of CrossFit is 3, 2, 1, go. If you don't have a 10-second countdown, there's no 3, 2, 1, go. It ruins the whole experience. So it's very critical that we got this right.
My 3, 2, 1, go is like, it's been 3 minutes between sets. I already looked at Slack. I guess I'll do this next set.
Yeah, I guess it's time now. You see, you don't need the 10-second countdown, but plenty of people apparently did this morning.
So like my personal life, like I use it so much, honestly, with my iPhone. There's just always things I'm trying to get done on my iPhone to make my life like a little like less annoying. The other day, I guess I bumped my watch and I drove to the gym. And when I got home from the gym, it said I had done like 3,200 steps for that day, but 6.5 miles. So I must have like bumped my watch. It tracked my drive. It knew I didn't actually walk the steps, but it gave me credit for like 6.5 miles. And for me, it's only true if it happened on the watch. And I don't like false stuff either. I like to like look at trends. Like I want to be able to like look at this October versus last October. And I don't want bad data in there.
You can't have bad data.
And it's so hard. I don't know if anyone's tried to delete steps that didn't happen or mileage that didn't happen from your phone. This is the coolest part to me. I'm on a walk doing this. I'm screenshotting from the health app on my iPhone in Claude. I'm like, no, I'm on this UI. And it's like, yeah, go to activity, click this, this. I'm like, no, look at this. I'm on operating system 26. And it's like, okay, go here, here, and here. Now it took 5 minutes and I was a little frustrated, but I got it wiped out. And I was like, this never would have happened before AI. What an amazing world we live in that you can screenshot anything on your phone, paste it in, and then get help with it.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, this is directly in line with what we're talking about today. So the actual subject of today's discussion was the other day, the true story, I texted Matt and I was like, dude, this MCP stuff is getting crazy. I just added a couple integrations to my Claude account. I did this whole thing at work. It saved me 1 million hours. And he's like, dude, that's awesome. We got to talk about it. And so really the topic of today, I think is more deeper dive on, we want to expand a little bit on our MCP discussion now that the tools there are getting better. Obviously we talked about Agent Kit earlier on an emergency episode and how it's leveraging MCP to do all this stuff. So now there's just more functional things that you can do. And there's, we don't have to talk about the theoretical chef entering your kitchen and cooking eggs. We can actually, talk about real stories. But the whole Apple debugging thing is actually so important because I don't know if anybody has had this happen. Somehow I got continuity camera turned on my phone, but I didn't enable it. It just turned on. And then what happens is I didn't realize this until I stumbled upon a message board with a bunch of frustrated Apple users that this has happened to. But what happens is it disconnects your phone from Wi-Fi and it spams your laptop incessantly with notifications. It's like disconnecting phone from Wi-Fi for continuity camera, plug it in to do whatever. And I couldn't get it to go away. I turned off continuity camera on my phone. I was like, why is this still happening? And turns out there's a terminal command that you can run in Mac. And I like asked ChatGPT, screenshots, whatever. It gave me the exact command, copy paste. They're like, throw this in your terminal, run it, and just reboot your phone. And it made all the notifications go away, all the problems go away. But I never would have figured that out stumbling, around the internet and searching message boards for some obscure person who figured this out. But again, able to instantly solve my problem by uploading a screenshot and asking some questions.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good segue to the meat of today's discussion. So we talked a little bit about MCP in a previous episode, which is the Model Context Protocol. It's basically, it's really tooling designed for AI agents to be able to do stuff in other systems. So it gives it access to different activities in that platform, like maybe it's looking up data or being able to actually update data, which is something that I'll talk about. But it also gives all of the relevant context for how to interact with that system. So it's like, just like the Matrix when, Neo plugs in and now he knows all this stuff. That's essentially what MCP does for AI agents is you now instantly they know how to perform that task. As we joked on the previous episode, they know how to cook eggs the way that you like, and they know where everything is in your kitchen, right? And, they're now being used more heavily by a lot of these AI platforms, these LLMs in general. But Anthropic, who is the company that has made the Claude AI solution, they were the ones who actually invented the protocol, right? And so now I think Matt and I are both heavy Claude users. I use ChatGPT a lot as well, but I think we're both pretty heavy Claude users for specific tasks. And because Anthropic actually developed MCP, their MCP tooling and their capabilities within Claude now are really, really cool. And so essentially, if you're in your Claude account and you click on the bottom left on your little profile icon, you can go into settings. And right in settings, there's a connections section that shows you the apps that Claude has access to. And out of the box, they have the ones that you would expect, like Google Drive, Calendar, that kind of thing. So, again, just to rewind for anybody who's maybe unfamiliar with our previous discussion, if you now install the Google Calendar connection in your Claude account, you can actually now ask questions about your schedule, your calendar. Hey, who am I meeting with tomorrow at 3? What companies are they from? All this other stuff. And we'll go down the rabbit hole this episode on some really cool stuff you can do. But they also give you the ability to add custom connections, which means any product or service that has an MCP server, which is now a growing list of companies like major providers, HubSpot, Linear, which is a ticketing system, which is the example I'll use. But basically, any major software provider that you probably interact with now is likely dabbling in MCP. And all you need to do is you give it a name, you put in MCP, it's like a URL. So the same way you go to a website like Google or your mail or Facebook.com or whatever, even though Facebook's not cool anymore. I don't know what the kids these days are doing. But basically, you just put that URL in, you click OK, and now suddenly you have access to all of the MCP capabilities for that product, which is kind of crazy. And, before I go too deep down the rabbit hole, I'd love to hear kind of some of your general thoughts about how much easier it's gotten maybe to use this.
Well, first of all, I'm glad you're sharing. We don't give too much away to each other before we record because we want to learn with you guys. So I didn't realize that you could just go and just kind of plug in anything that has MCP into Claude. So that's really exciting. I'll give one example that I think people will like. I think most people are probably ChatGPT users. And inside of ChatGPT, I'll pull it open real quick so I could see. If you go into your ChatGPT and you go into the settings, there's something called connectors. That's what they call it. That's their way of saying basically MCP. I think everyone should get started by just integrating your Google Calendar and integrating your Slack. There's a 99% chance if you're listening to this pod, you use those two things. Oh, and your Gmail, right? And what I did is I added those things and then I started talking to ChatGPT and I said, hey, what can you do with this connection to my Slack and Gmail and Calendar? Now, I don't know if Claude's different. You'll have to tell us. But with ChatGPT, it's read only. You can just read stuff from my tools. It can't write changes back, which makes sense. That's where things get really agentic and business to businessy. But it was yeah, I can read your calendar. I can do stuff. And I was okay, what's going on in my inbox? And it wrote back to me basically what my inbox looks like. It was pretty lame, honestly. I was so I wrote back to it. I challenged it in natural language. I said, what you gave to me here is no different than me clicking on my inbox. So what could you do to help me better understand things? And it was and I said, I gave it a prompt. I said, I'm a very busy executive. I was really feeling myself.
Those prompts are helpful. Hey,
yeah.
I'm very important. Take me seriously.
And it was oh, if you're a very busy executive, it kind of worked. It was what I can do is I could summarize the action-based highlights from both your Gmail and your Slack that require your action that seem to be important and even highlight overlap. between the two. And I can do this for you once a day and message you back here. And I will tell you, it is pretty awesome. So I'm the kind of person, like if somebody sends me something important in Slack, I always like right click it and press remind me tomorrow at 9 a.m. so I don't forget. Or if I send them a message, I put a reminder to get it back. But I can tell you, it's like having like a smart EA that is like saying, well, you did ask for this thing and you said that this demo is kind of buggy over here. And you might want to follow up with that because, you sent that message and I haven't seen a reply. I was like, damn. And that's MCP, everybody. MCP is just like my life got way better. So every morning I can wake up and be like, what happened in the last 24 hours across these messaging platforms that I might have forgotten? Sometimes it's irrelevant. Most of the time, it's actually crazy helpful.
Yeah. And ChatGPT formally launched this Pulse feature, which is basically like a daily digest. And so based on the stuff that you're asking it to give you, it can actually, proactively tee up these reminders, which I think is really cool. So I'll talk about a specific use case that I was using Claude and MCP for the other day, but then I actually want to generalize it in a way where you can get immediate value right away from just connecting your Google Calendar. So we'll talk about my use case and then I'll generalize it for everybody. So we use Linear, which is basically just like it's a ticketing system. It's a to-do list. So it's like, hey, what are the things that I have to do? Issues or tickets are tied to different projects. And it's essentially a project management tool. And like I think Matt feels this way as well. I always have far too many projects going on at any one time and far too many tasks to do. And it's hard because we both context switch a lot during the day. So I could be working on one problem, for 10 minutes and then a very different problem. And I'm kind of ping ponged all over the place. And so what I did was Linear has an MCP server. Again, it's basically just like a website address. I copied that. I went to connect a custom tool and a custom connector in my Claude account, pasted in that URL. It redirected me to Linear to verify and just say, hey, are you cool with the sharing data? Yes. And it also actually, you then can configure it. And it even gives you the ability to say, do this automatically or ask me for permission. So you can say, hey, to read a ticket or read a project, just do it. I don't care. But I was able to actually specify if I tell it to change something, double check with me first. So it's not going to go haywire. It'll actually confirm that I'm okay with making changes or whatever. So it does have the ability to write and make changes, which I think is really awesome. And so what I did was like anybody at any company, senior leadership wanted to get a status of projects in a certain category. And they're like, hey, we want to know the latest activity on these projects, like any major changes, what's going on. We have a bunch of pilots that are happening. And I connected my Linear account. And then Claude also has some context about, me and my business and what I do because I've added some prompting to it, right? And so I was able to say, hey, just list out the projects for me in this particular team. Give me the latest status in a very digestible format that I could send in an email. And it, boom, 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 bulleted list, listed out all the key changes. Hey, here's the latest updates for this project. Here's something that is in review that you should probably double check. This project just had 3 more tickets added to it recently, and it gave me this very digestible email that I could then send to my boss to give a snapshot understanding of the work that's been done that week. And if I did that by hand, it would have taken at least an hour, maybe a little bit more, versus 5 minutes of like adding this connection and then typing into the box and telling it what I wanted, which I thought was pretty crazy.
It's so good. People just will never understand, Gen Alpha, they'll never understand how much time we used to waste. Like, when we watch movies from the 50s and people wear like top hats and everyone's chain smoking indoors and drinking whiskey for lunch. And we look back.
That was it was a well-balanced meal.
Yeah. Or maybe I just watched too much Mad Men. That's my only like orientation. But like when they watch shows about us pre-LLMs to establish like the time frame in movies and TV, like they're probably going to show us working on like really trivial time taking tasks and think about like how like foolish we all were, because like think about how many people have been hired into companies that were kind of unnecessary, because it is really important from a project management standpoint to funnel up a level to make decisions about things. If you go into a project management software of any kind, where everyone has to delegate every single task that needs to get done, and there's updates and statuses and comments, like to go through 12 different projects that are open at any given time just a lot of clicking. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of writing, it's typos, it's formatting. And then you want to send it, you want to make it look good. But that was never a good use of anyone's time. Getting a synthesis of what's going on inside of the business of these key 12 projects has always been important. That's the outcome. But for decades and decades, we've spent so much time on busy work. This is why I just don't feel like AI has any real super scary implications for the future. I really don't. I think we'll be blown away when we look back at how insane it was that like we spent so much time like knowledge workers, professionals, reading things over and summarizing things or handwriting notes on a call and sending deep follow-ups and clicking through opportunity after opportunity if you're a seller to remind yourself about what's going on just to give somebody a status update, or looking at handwritten notes or sending each other handwritten notes to prep for a call and all this kinds of stuff. It was just nonsensical. So like we're all just becoming like really like superhuman if we use these tools. I think what you're highlighting here for us is none of us are using them enough, because that existed before you did it. And
Absolutely.
You're a hardcore AI adopter. And this Slack integration and Gmail thing existed before I was doing it in ChatGPT. It's not like I did it the first day it came out. All of us really need to challenge ourselves to go into the settings of these systems. Claude and ChatGPT are doing a great job of it. And just start connecting to this stuff. And then I think if you have these tools in your company, it's very quick and easy. It's not intense, guys. You just click your Gmail, give it the right read and write authority, whatever. And then you just got to ask the LLM, like, what can I do with you? And it's going to be a little generalized. So then why don't you tell it about your role? Hey, in my role, I got to do this and this and this a lot. Now that you have access to these tools, can you help me with this in any way? It has more context and it can probably really help us all be way more efficient. You could probably now go help the company close more business because you didn't waste all that time going through those projects for like half your day.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no way I would have been able to get through my actual to-do list if I spent the amount of time it used to take to do this project organization task. So I like the challenge, and I'm going to challenge. I will spell out a challenge that I think is valid and helpful. And then I'll go deep down the rabbit hole later with some other crazy stuff I did this week using the same tools. But so with Claude, and ChatGPT is the same way. We've talked about custom GPTs. But Anthropic through Claude just also launched something called Skills. So there's two buckets that you can use to give it information to what Matt was just saying. Like, here is my company, here is my role, here are some relevant documents. So in Claude, you can create a project that, and it's right in there's a little plus sign when you look at that text box, and there's a thing called, add project, and you can create one. And the project is a great place to give it general context about your company, what you do, maybe point it to your website, just give it a general understanding about what it is that your business does, what industry you're in, those type of things. And then Skills actually allow you to basically toggle on and off additional context for different use cases. And so this is where you can create a skill that is like the project management skill, which is just more typing and instructions, right? So if you're doing this project management workflow, you have you're in your company project, you add this skill, and it literally, it's got a nice UI now. You can toggle it on and off. It's just like a little slider button like we're used to using. And you say, okay, I'm doing project management work today. I'm going to toggle on this extra prompt for project management. And then what you can do is in Claude, you can connect your Gmail, right? So you've now given it this company project, some information about your company and what you do. You now give it this skill with some additional context. What you can do is, let's say you have some prospects that you are meeting with, or there's a couple meetings on your calendar, right? And you have their emails. You can put a little bit of info about those companies, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to go a layer deeper, you can actually connect it to your CRM. There's like a HubSpot MCP now that you can connect, but simple version, just type into the box about the companies you're working with. And then once you actually connect it to your Google Calendar with this MCP tool, you can have it do meeting prep for you before you jump onto that call with the prospect. So you can say, hey, I'm jumping into a meeting. Look at my calendar. I want you to analyze the external meetings, and it can tell the difference because it knows your company's email. So it can find where you have external meetings. And I want you to give me a one-pager for every external meeting with relevant information about the prospect, the company, and how our company, knowing what you know about us, can help them. So now if you're working in go-to-market and you have a bunch of initial sales calls, you can now go in prepared with like a value proposition for how you can help them solve their problems. And all of this can be created automatically by just connecting to your Google Calendar and giving it some information.
And does that mean that, like, if you were in a sales role or a customer success role, that your job is over because you used to tie up a lot of your self-worth and value and time into doing that kind of prep work? Yes, if you don't have critical thinking or any creativity or anything to bring to the table, or you don't know anything about your product or service or something meaty you actually wanted to get to for your client. But instead, businesses have been wildly inefficient for decades and decades because we were doing our job. We were doing the right thing by doing all that prep work and spending all of that time. And we only have so much brain power every day. Therefore, we weren't being creative. Have you guys ever gone on a vacation before? I imagine you have. And by like day 3 of the vacation, when you finally start to relax, all of a sudden you start having creative ideas, especially if you start reading a book on a vacation. And if it's anything related at all to business, if it's like nonfiction, you're going to start to be like, oh, we could do this and this and this at work, because you finally have a minute to just breathe. You're not so reactive. So I don't think any of this stuff is scary, because I think most people are well-intentioned to create and innovate, and you can't create or innovate when you don't have the space to create or innovate.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Those who are going to be like the top earners, the top sellers, are not only going to know about their products, not only know about their competitors, not only have classic sales skills, they're going to be the ones that adopt the technology and put MCP and agents and conversational LLMs to work for them, so they can be doing all the right things that they've always been trained to do, and then start to use their creativity and their genius.
Yeah, for sure. Well, think about the following, right? You've now done your basic research. Now I ask a follow-up question. I say, who out of the calls coming up, which ones are with, important decision makers? Like, you can list out the key people in deals that maybe you're talking with. And now you can have it highlight the important calls. And now, instead of doing all this meeting prep in terms of like basic stuff that you've now leveraged MCP to take care of for you, you can spend an hour on LinkedIn looking up somebody's, information, recent posts, something that you can actually talk to them about on the call. And now as a salesperson, you're now building a better connection. You're establishing a deeper connection with that individual, with that prospect. And so again, it's not going to take away your job. It's going to allow you to actually be way more effective at your job and be way more creative and actually do the things that make a difference in these conversations and interactions with prospects or with customers.
So real talk for the listeners. Justin inspired me on this call. I opened Claude on this podcast.
Real time, live.
And I set up all my MCP, because I already did this on ChatGPT a while ago, but you inspired me. And in like the 20 minutes we've been recording this podcast, I integrated everything. If you go into the chat window and you have Google Drive hooked up in Claude, in the bottom right-hand corner, it says like, create a picture, do some coding, and then something that says from Drive. I clicked from Drive, the from Drive option, and it gives you all these really creative ideas. It says, one of them says, surface unexpected connections across my different accounts. Summarize my top projects this quarter. Tell me how my project focus has evolved over time. Reveal blind spots in my knowledge base. Locate documents that represent pivotal moments in my thinking. I mean, this stuff is like crazy, right? Like just really interesting prompt ideas. So I clicked the one that said, could you find which of my ideas have gained the most traction at work? I just clicked it. So just so you guys know, on this podcast, I connected to the Drive. I clicked one of their pre-prompts, and Justin, I gotta tell you for real, like this just blew my mind. So I connected to Notion and Drive and HubSpot and Gmail and Slack. Right? And I just pressed that prompt. And the prompt that I put in, it said, which of my ideas have gained the most traction at work? When you have gathered sufficient information, use an artifact if you think that's useful. If using an artifact, think about what kind of interactive visuals or checklists would benefit me. It wrote all this itself. It went to Notion and it searched for all the things that have gone on in Notion related to my ideas. It then searched for Drive, and it looked for suggestions and feedback and comments on things that I've done in Drive with my colleagues. And it said, now let me check HubSpot to see if there are any tracked ideas, proposals, or features that have engagement. Then it went to Notion pages, and it looked at mentions and ideas and proposals based off of things that came from Google Drive. This is crazy. Then what it did is it coded an artifact for me. It gave me what looks like a website and said, Matt, you've had 6 total ideas. 4 of them have high traction. 2 of them have been implemented by your company. It gave me the who's involved, the milestones that are connected to it, buttons I can click for high, medium, and low traction ideas. And I can click one of those like go to the URL type things, and it'll give me a deeper dive as to what could be the next thing to do. That happened when I was on this call.
That's actually bananas. I didn't even know it could do that much. And
It
like
is
you just
crazy.
connected it to stuff, right? You literally just did the connections that are available, like click some buttons and used one of their own prompts, right? That's if I'm replaying what just happened real time.
I connected like 4 apps by clicking, clicked their prompt. I was listening to you. And then I just figured, oh, let's look at it later. And then all of a sudden it coded a website for me.
That is super cool. So this is actually a very good meta point. One of the things that I think is most impressive about AI tools now that are available to consumers, like to the listeners of this podcast, the people who are listening, like the stuff that you can literally log on and use either for free or for like $20 a month, which is, if you think about how you just created more than $20 a month of value in the background while we were talking, right? So like in terms of actual like ROI on personal investment, it's massive. And if you have a corporate account, then they pay for it anyway. So you should just use it. But the fact that you can reason across a broad set of completely unstructured data, this is just like looking at random documents and Notion, which could contain all kinds of stuff. And then it's reasoning across who's interacting and engaging with these docs. How do they tie into what I know about you based on, connecting to your calendar or to your, Google Drive account. So it's looking at people who are, contributing across these broad surfaces, and it's able to actually generate actionable data for you and then suggesting what could be the next best idea. And it's doing that by reasoning across all of those surfaces and integrations completely in the background. That, I think, is the most powerful thing that these tools can do.
It's absolutely blowing my mind real time as we're on the call right now. For our listeners, I'm going to ping it to you, Justin. You guys won't be able to see it, but that's okay. I just want you to click it. Just tell me, what is your reaction? I just put it in the chat. What do you think? Give that a click.
Geez. Talk about technology. I was going to say, I don't even know how to find the chat. Now I see it. I'm going to go click. All right, let's open
Drum
this
roll.
up.
Curious to see what you think about how it's prioritizing my ideas at work.
Honestly, guys, this is crazy.
This is
you
crazy.
can even sort by high traction, medium traction. Wow. Like,
It's mind blowing.
and then it gives key metrics and progress milestones, breakdowns of steps. And you can link out to each individual one here, which is, and it has a link to the Notion article it pulled from too. So it has actually a link back to the source material for where it came up with this stuff. And it gives you the ability to customize in the upper corner. So if you want it to look different, you can prompt it again. That's bananas.
Y'all, this is really impressive stuff. I'm really happy that we talked about this today. I don't think we need to go much deeper, honestly, for the podcast listeners. I mean, like, you guys are hearing real time how easy it is. I'm happy that I connected with Justin's inspiration. And this is also why I like to experiment with different tools. Like, I'm using ChatGPT and Claude. I'm using Claude probably more than anything right now. But like, even just connecting to these 2 different companies to pretty much the same tools to see which one can inspire you more. And they're competing with each other and they're both pushing the envelope. So things are only getting better. I think the takeaway that we should have for everybody is just get started, start connecting these things, and you might have your mind blown real time, like I just did. That I didn't even tell it to make a website. It just decided to make a website instead of talking to me. Like, let me create this in a visual way for you, Matt, to help you understand how your ideas are tracking at work. Like, my goodness, it's impressive stuff.
Well, the crazy thing is it probably knew that website would be the best mechanism to share the information with you based on your interactions across the stuff that you connected it to. Because I know you're kind of visual. You like to have those types of artifacts in terms of relaying information. So the reality is it probably decided it should make that website because it knew it was giving the information to you, which is even crazier.
Yeah. I think a lot of our listeners are probably using either a premium account or their company has given them like an enterprise account, which means that you guys do have the ability in the settings to connect to these tools. Just do it and then start interacting with it. I think you'll find countless use cases. And if you can't think of any on your own, that's totally fine. Start chatting with the chatbot itself to understand what could be useful as it relates to your job. Just talk to it about the parts of your job that you find frustrating, or if you had a magic wand, what you would love for it to report to you each day based off of what it can see that's going on inside of your accounts. And because it's generative, there's no limits. And none of us had ever thought of all the different things it could do. I think just start. And all of you who have different jobs, like if you're a marketer, Justin and I are not, like there's probably amazing things it could do for marketing. We're not in customer success. I'm sure it could do great things for that as well.
One last takeaway that you've
please.
inspired me to give, and this will be my sign out for the episode. But just to continue the theme earlier of call research or research for events. All right. You're a go-to-market professional and you're about to attend a conference. All right. You click the button to connect your HubSpot account. Like literally, Matt did this real time on the call. So I promise you it is not complicated. He literally was just clicking while relaying amazing podcast knowledge to you all and set this thing up. Right. So it's, I promise it's not difficult, right? You connect your HubSpot or you connect your Notion, your Google Drive, whatever. Now it has access to these documents. You're about to go to a conference. You open up LinkedIn, you scroll through, you're looking at some of the people who are attending on your phone, screenshot their LinkedIn page on your phone, go into your Claude, add the screenshot. You don't even have to type. You can hit the little microphone button and start talking into your phone and ask it to help prepare talking points for this person that you want to meet at the conference. And actually, this is a subtle nuance I think is important with AI tools is tell it why you want to do what you want to do. Say, hey, listen, I'm nervous to approach this person at a conference because I know they're a VP at whatever company, but I think we can provide a lot of value. Give me some talking points to help break the ice and maybe establish a connection and whatever, like leverage the tools that you have at your disposal. And it can give you a whole strategy based on the HubSpot record, based on your company docs, based on the screenshot that you added, and just talk to it and tell you what you want it to do. And I would encourage you as like maybe an extension of the homework assignment from earlier is do some market research on a couple prospects in that exact way. Once you click a couple of these buttons and connect things, and maybe it'll make you a website to, wow your prospects that you want to meet at an event or something. But that's crazy that you were able to do that live.
Thanks to your inspiration, honestly, because you inspired us to do this episode. And this is what we want to do for our listeners here. We want to learn alongside of y'all. But we take it as a responsibility to make sure that like when new things come out that we do play around with them and tool around with them to tell you guys what we think some of the cool use cases are or the ones that you should try out. So yeah, everyone connect those tools. We'll talk about more use cases. I imagine we're going to be able to write back to these systems pretty soon. I see that Claude actually has a non-Google sanctioned version of Google Chrome that they created that does let you do write changes back to Chrome, which is getting kind of crazy. So I think we're very much at the tip of the iceberg, but guys, like just think about where we were when we spoke about MCP. What was that, 6-7 weeks ago? And now where we are on this call, blowing each other's minds. Like it's happening, everybody. So stay tuned. We're going to keep you aware of everything that's going on that needs your attention. We'll do the trial runs first.
Yeah. Well, apparently now all you have to do is click a couple buttons and then look 10 minutes later and be mind blown. Like that's crazy. It's still like, guys, honestly, unbelievable website that I just looked at and clicked through with some of the most amazing ideas that Vad has had. And the fact that built it by itself is pretty unbelievable. So again, we're trying to demystify this stuff. It's incredible what it can do, but it doesn't have to be complicated. You've all clicked buttons. You've all navigated websites. Like honestly, connecting these tools is as difficult as navigating a website or pasting in a web address like you do every day anyways. So if you can navigate your internet browser, I promise you can leverage MCP. And you may think that it's this scary concept, but please play around with it, try it out. Tell us what you build. Tell us what cool websites it creates for you. We'd love to hear it. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in. Share it with one friend. Go share this podcast with one friend.
Share it with one friend. Tell them that they can talk to their CRM now via MCP. And that's pretty cool. I think they'll appreciate it.
Very cool. Thank you as always, guys. Until next time.
See ya.